Hi everyone, so we're going to get started on module 2.1 today, which is going to focus on visualizing data with ggplot2. So in the last module, we learned how to download data from an API, actually two APIs. We downloaded data from the World Bank and from the Varieties of Democracy or VDEM Institute. And then we learned a number of dplyr functions and functions from Janitor to wrangle those data. So I would venture to say at this point the course gets a little bit easier because the hardest part of any data science project is actually wrangling the data. So now we're going to take the data from the last module and we're going to use that for some visualizations. We're also going to continue to download data and wrangle data throughout the course, but you're over that hump of learning how to do that difficult work. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we'll do first is we'll go ahead and we'll go to recent projects. If you've been following along, you'll have this modules folder that we created earlier in the course that is going to house all of our code along Quarto documents. So we'll go ahead and open that up. Okay, and so from there we're going to start a new Quarto document. And we can title this something like Module 2.1. Put our name in the author field. I can't spell my name. Manual title Bob. There we go. Create it. Okay, and let's go ahead and save it. And save it as Module 2.1. Okay. So then let's delete out all of the stuff in the template. And here, let's do a little setup code chunk up here because we're only going to have a few packages that we're going to, to start off with. We're only going to have a few packages that we're going to be using. So let's load those in. We're going to use Reorder to read in some data. We're going to use dplyr. And we are also going to use ggplot2, and this would have been installed along with the tidyverse, all of the other packages in the tidyverse collection. And note that all of these packages here are part of the tidyverse collection, so you could just go ahead and type library tidyverse and it would load all of these. But I think when we're learning, it's good to be intentional about which packages we're using. We can just go ahead and run that. We can actually, let's label that first. Label, and we'll just call this setup. We'll run that. Okay, now our packages are loaded, so let's just close that. And let's start a section called bar charts. The first thing we're going to do is to create a bar chart, and we're going to do that by loading in the data from the last module 1.2. We're going to load in the dem summary CSV file that we saved in that module. So let's say a little bit about what we're going to do here. First, we are going to create a bar chart. We are going to visualize the polyarchy score from the data in the dem summary.csv file that we saved in the last module. Okay. And let's go ahead and put a code chunk in there. Let's label this, call it bar chart. And from there, we can get started with our code. So dem summary, we're going to create a data frame called dem summary by reading in our data from the last lesson, or one of the files from the last lesson. So that is again saved here in our data file. We see it here, dem summary. So we're going to tell Reorder to read that in. So this should be data / dem summary.csv. Okay. So that's going to be the first step. And then, so we could write a comment here, read in data. We can write a comment here, make bar chart with ggplot2. Okay. Let's go ahead and make the visualization then. So ggplot is the function from the ggplot2 package that's going to make our visualizations for us. And it takes essentially two arguments. The first one is the data, and the second is the mapping. So the data refers to the data that we want, the data frame that we want to visualize, or the data frame with the data that we want to visualize. And here that's going to be dem summary. And then the mapping refers to the aesthetics mappings for the visualization. So we wrap that, the aesthetics mappings themselves, in a function called AES. So we basically want to map X and Y for this visualization. So we're going to map on the X-axis region, and the Y-axis the polyarchy score. Okay. Okay, and also note that the convention, we're putting explicitly here data equals and mapping equals. Usually when you see a ggplot call, it doesn't include this. So you'll usually just see the name of the data frame, and then you'll see AES, right? And that will work. That will work just as well. But because we're learning, we're going to be a little bit more intentional about it, and we're going to go ahead and put the names of the arguments in there. Okay, so from there, the next thing we want to do is we want to start adding other elements of the graph. Recall that GG in ggplot refers to grammar of graphics. So we can think about this graph as having different elements or different layers that we're adding on with the code. So the next layer is going to be our geom. And in this case, our geom is going to be a column or series of columns, right? Our geom could also be a line. It could be points, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so we're going to call geom call, and then we're going to say that we want the fill color to be steel blue. We could pick a lot of different colors, but let's go ahead and make it blue. So if we just run this, this should work. Okay, and then we have our bar chart, but notice we don't have a title. The X and the Y axis labels don't look that great because they're lowercase. So what we can do next is we can go ahead and modify the labels on the chart, and we can do that by calling labs. So plus, this is a plus sign here because we're going to add some labels, and then we're calling labs, and then from there we're going to define what the labels should be for the X and the Y axis, the title, and we're going to add a caption. So we'll put X equals region. Let's make it a title case because that's what we want. And then Y equals, we'll say average polyarchy score. Remember that these are averages that we're taking across regions and across all years from 1990. So we want to signify that to the reader in some way. And so next we can put in a title. Democracy by region, 1990 to 1990 to present. And then from there we can put a caption. I'm going to say that the source is VDem Institute. Okay, and let's go ahead and run that again. Okay, and there we have our labeled bar chart. Okay, so this looks pretty good, but notice that the x-axis is in alphabetical order. And in some cases you may want your x-axis to be in alphabetical order, but oftentimes it looks better if our bar chart is like in descending or ascending order of values. What we can do here is we can go ahead and we can just go ahead and copy this code chunk. Okay. And let's write some text here, and we'll say now let's arrange our x-axis in terms of descending values of the polyarchy score. Okay, and let's change this label, because if you have two code chunks that are labeled the same thing, it'll throw an error. So we'll call this bar chart ordered. Okay, and then we can go ahead and delete this because we've already read the data in, and then we're just going to tweak this line a little bit in the ggplot call. Okay, in the aesthetics call, we're going to do x equals, instead of just region, we're going to write reorder region, comma, minus sign, polyarchy. Okay, and that basically, that reorder call here basically tells ggplot that we want the x-axis to be ordered in terms of descending value of the polyarchy score. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's try running it. When we copied this, it looks like we didn't have the backticks at the bottom, so that's not going to work until we put the backticks in. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's save it, and let's go ahead and run this. So now we have a nicely labeled bar chart with the x-axis ordered in terms of the descending values of the polyarchy score. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's how we do a bar chart. And in the next lesson, we're going to learn how to do a histogram. See you there.